Hello, welcome or welcome back. Thank you so much for choosing to spend some time with me today. Today, I wanted to talk about loneliness and the spiritual reasons for such a thing. Loneliness is really peculiar. It's something that I've talked a lot about at this channel, and honestly, it's a thing that I notice a lot of connection with when I bring it up. There are a lot of you in the comments section sharing your experiences with loneliness, and a lot of people are looking for a sense of community right now and a sense of safety as we are working through some very unprecedented times. So, right before we get into that, I do want to say thank you to my patrons, including Complete Club members Flem de la Fleming, Chris Curious, Martina Duran, Transcending Void, and Walkin' on Cats. If you are interested in supporting myself, in supporting this channel, and helping out a little bit, please visit patreon.com/American Dragon, and remember to like and subscribe. This is something that I think is really kind of funny because it's something that everybody suffers through, and yet everybody feels like they are alone in suffering. Feeling lonely is a necessarily isolating experience that separates you from the larger collective. What's really fascinating to me is that if you do any study into religious theosophy, a thing that you'll find over and over again is that loneliness is a very persistent theme. Loneliness is equivalent to evil or to devil or to Satan, and togetherness, holiness, completeness, unification is equivalent to God and divinity. And I think that there is a broad truth going on behind the scenes that lends itself to that perspective. So, from a Christian perspective, you might know about the fall. The fall is the idea that, once God and his angels were all together, and then there was a rebellion, and Satan and some other angels left God's heavenly, company. And more or less, depending on how you perceive it, they created the hell realms, maybe even the earthly realms to some degree in the way that at least humans interact with it. You'll find this theme again in the Garden of Eden story of Genesis, where Adam and Eve are hanging out in the garden and everything is super groovy, and then a mistake is made, and now they can no longer be close to God because they sought to be like God. This is the very Western view. A lot of it gets sort of lost in the sauce when people think about Christianity, which tends to focus on the Christ figure. But other religions give a similar concept. Buddhism, for instance, teaches that our goal as human beings is to exercise our karma through multiple lifetimes, and the end of those lifetimes and the end of suffering is the end of samsara, also known as nirvana. And the meaning of nirvana is to end the cycle of samsara, to stop reincarnating, and to unify with the great spirit, the great oneness of the universe. Similarly, if you look into the realms of Taoism, you'll find that Taoism really presents humanity and our egos and our behaviors and personalities. All of this is just emergent nature, just like anything else. So the idea is that a person does what a person does because a person is not so unlike a tree. So even all the horrible things that we do to our environment, even all the mistakes that we make, those are still our nature, and those things are still us exploring our nature. So for myself, I tend to hold a relatively karmic viewpoint of life. I agree in broad strokes with the Buddhist and Hinduist philosophy that we are reincarnated and that we are working towards some sort of goal of unification. What this does is it takes the epidemic of loneliness and it can reframe it in a way that makes some degree of spiritual or philosophical sense. As human beings, we are intelligent enough to know that we are alone. And this is something that lesser life may deal with on some instinctual level, but certainly can't articulate and pontificate upon like a human being can. So we can spend a lot of time not just feeling lonely, but also wallowing in our loneliness and reliving past experiences that led to our loneliness, revisiting mistakes that made us feel isolated, and considering our futures, which become very bleak and difficult to even imagine when we are going through an extreme bout of terrible loneliness. Loneliness is such a painful experience because at the spiritual core of these philosophies that I'm discussing, being with God, being as one, is like the greatest succor, the greatest desire, the most intense pleasure that one could even imagine, is to reunify and join the Holy Spirit, join God, join the great void or beyond or the universe or whatever you want to call it. And this separateness that we're going through is well and truly, definitively suffering. Being one, being alone, is to suffer. So as human beings, what we tend to do is we use language. Our minds have given us this resource of language, and language works as a sort of shorthand for telepathy. We want to just be each other. We want to just be with each other, but we can't do that because we are separated by physical bodies. And so we use language to communicate our desires, our loves, our values, our hopes. And just as useful as language is for connecting with others, language is also the tool of our own decimation. When we connect with other people who we believe to share our values, and then something new comes up, something new is communicated, oftentimes miscommunicated or misunderstood, we experience a separation, and that separation is agonizingly painful. This is why losing friendships, losing romantic relationships, losing family members, these things are so difficult and so challenging, because it takes that oneness that you felt, it takes that feeling of unification as you were beginning to feel like you were part of a whole, you were part of a complete hive. We're all striving to be part of something greater than ourselves. A lot of people find that purpose in corporations, especially in the Western working world. We all know that's not really my vibe, and it might not be yours if you're watching, but in reality, there are actually a lot of great ways that you can unite under a need, perhaps through a charity or perhaps through some sort of volunteer work. It doesn't necessarily have to be like an evil corporation that you're pushing forward. A lot of people also find that community in their church. So again, when you're in church, you're feeling this connection that you all believe, if not the same thing, you believe in something similar. So when you go to church, you are part of the church body. You're a piece of that larger entity, and you are all working together in some sort of concert. Similarly, speaking of concerts, when you're performing music with a group of people, or when you're seeing live music with a group of people, again, you experience that feeling of unification. We are all connected by our shared interest and by our shared passion and by the music, which is speaking to us again on a level that's closer to telepathy than just language, because there are subtleties in language that you cannot communicate just through words. This is one of the reasons why poetry is so beautiful, is because using the tools that we've given ourselves, we are able to put ideas to paper with new subtlety, with new nuance, in new ways that communicate more of your inexplicable human experience. And you might know the feeling of connecting with somebody over poetry or over music or over a shared love of cinema or video games is such an incredible feeling, to meet and know somebody else who had the same experience you did. So this is the opposite of loneliness, right? This is the feeling of togetherness, of being part of a greater whole. But the reality is you aren't. The reality is that you do have a body, and you are autonomous, and you are not only part of some greater entity or some greater machine. And in fact, there's a level of introspection that in order to grow as a human being, you have to choose to take upon yourself. You have to be willing to look inwards and to examine yourself to help you examine the world outside. As within, so without; as above, so below. This is such a significant principle and guiding message throughout all of our existence, is that what you find within mirrors that which you find without. So within you, there are all these organisms and all of these functions coming together to create a unified self, and that unified self is you, and you are aching to do the same thing as those individual life essences inside of your body. You also want to belong to something greater. And the good news is that you do, and that you are something greater. The bad news is that you really have to suffer singleness now, and that's unavoidable. So what is the purpose of this singleness? What is the purpose of this loneliness that we're all experiencing? From my perspective, which is shared with traditional Buddhist and Hindu values, among others, is one of karma. The way that I understand karma and believe it to function, it's not so much like this tipping scales of good thing, bad thing. That's a little too simplistic. Karma appears to function more like this web, this interconnected web of desire and decision making and influence and choice. And everybody that you interact with in your life and in your past lives contribute to your karma, and you contribute to theirs. And we weave these tangled webs as we make decisions and choose how we're going to act upon the world and those around us. And then that creates impressions that follow us throughout our lifetimes. And the great reconciliation is to reconcile the ego, is to reconcile the self as an aspect of your identity and not the entirety of it. You know, you are a shard of God. It's been said that all matter is Satan crawling back to God. And I've said that before, but it still just kind of, it rings through with the whole theme, the whole way I started this with the fall of the angels, right? We are separate and we are moving towards oneness, but we have to reconcile our separateness in order to do that. And samsara is the reconciliation of separateness. It is finding the God inside yourself. It is finding the universe. It is finding the Tao inside of yourself, so that you can expand that and grow it and become a part of it yourself. Am I making sense? I sure do hope so. It's always going to be a theme of this channel that I am not afraid to get esoteric and get out there. I don't care if it sounds like I'm crazy or tripping right now. I'm hopefully not either of those things, but I cannot say for sure. What I can say for sure is that this channel and my art has given me the ability to connect with people who I wouldn't have been able to connect with otherwise. The ability to grow new relationships, the ability to express kindness to new strangers, and forge new bonds. I've made some great friends through this medium, as I have through my drawn artwork, or as I have through my music. And that means the world to me. You know, this is artwork is how I am exercising my karma. It is how I am coming to terms with my human identity and learning how to move beyond it and experience consciousness outside of the confines of my body and share myself with the collective in a way that is meaningful, kind, loving, and hopefully educational to some capacity. It's always going to be sticky talking about these really broad subjects and talking about this really baffling out there stuff when we live in a Western rationalist world that is very focused on the confines of observable science and what we can experience with and through our bodies. What I encourage you to do is to take the experiences that you have with your body that fall outside of our current parameters of science and to take those experiences seriously. And a big part of that is loneliness. Everyone suffers loneliness, everyone feels alone, and everyone feels like they're the only one who feels it. People tend to carry this loneliness on their shoulders, and they tend to harbor it all themselves and worry about how people might react if they were to know exactly how lonely we feel. And a lot of times, especially in the media right now, you hear about the male loneliness epidemic, and a big part of that is this gender discretion that we have in the Western world that suggests that men can't share their feelings and that men must bear the load in order to be strong. And this is so far from any sort of spiritual truth, because that independence is suffering. Learning to have friends, learning to have a community, however you find it, whether it is through your church, whether it is through your work, or whether it is through your queer found family, whatever it is, it will bring you closer to happiness. It'll bring you closer to absolution. It'll bring you closer to the light. Learning to be selfless, learning to be empathetic, understanding and kind is the way to grow. It's the way to become the you that you're meant to be and eventually ascend to whatever the next layer is. Most religions don't just go, it's nothing than human than God. It really, most have these layers, the hell realms and the heaven realms, or the Vedas, or, there's all these different ways to exist as a conscious entity. And I think that while I may not be able to accurately pontificate on these things, I might not be able to reach out and touch a ninth dimensional entity or whatever that is of a higher consciousness than I am. I can feel the love in my heart of what that might be like to be such a complete being, to be not just myself, but to be every soul on earth, or to be the spirit of our universe. That is the within. Your imagination, your visualization is the most powerful tool that you have for exploring this stuff, and it is worth exploring. Keep yourself grounded. Understand that the real world is here and you were born into it. The whole point of my channel is called American Drag because whatever I am wearing the drag of an American human being right now. And I'm living this American experience through these highs and these very low lows, which we're going through right now. And there is a lot of stress and a lot of worry, but again, this is my karma. I am here now to experience these things as they are for the purposes of my own development and my own growth. And I want you to see yourself in the same light. The loneliness that you're suffering is by design, but it is not eternal. In fact, it can be broken. It can be taken apart by understanding it, by accepting it, by loving the part of yourself that is lonely, and by reaching out to others, sharing your experiences, and learning how to be part of something greater and seeing just how great that can feel. This path isn't for everyone, but if you made it to this point in the video, it's probably for you. If you have any questions, please put them in the comments below. If you have any suggestions, things that you want me to talk about, or things that you specifically want me to make an American Drag video on, which are my anime AMV sort of poetry things, I absolutely love making those and I want to continue making that. So please leave a shout in the comment box below. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you're grateful for as a person and how you have in the past addressed your loneliness or how you intend to address your loneliness in the near future. I want to say thank you for being here with me. I love you. I appreciate you with all my heart, and I intend on seeing you next week. Bye-bye.